Well, hello everybody out there. Welcome to another random video. And in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about a rumor that has been going around for quite a while now. And we want to see whether or not this rumor is actually true. The rumor is that pre-recorded mini-discs seem to have the same bad reputation as pre-recorded cassettes, meaning they just sound awful and definitely don't sound as great as if you record them yourself at home with a decent recorder. So, where does this rumor come from? When it comes to pre-recorded cassettes, this rumor isn't really a rumor, it's actually true. Pre-recorded cassettes never sounded as good as home-recorded cassettes due to the fact that they have always been using very cheap quality tape in order to keep the production costs down and also the cost for the finished product, for the finished cassette. And B, they have always been recording these cassettes in high speed. And those tapes are definitely not meant to be recorded in high speed. So that was something that lowered the quality. Yes, they did improve the quality over time a little bit by recording with Dolby B noise reduction, later on even with Dolby C and Dolby S noise reduction, but those cassettes are extremely rare. Most of them are recorded with Dolby B. And they also started recording with Dolby HX Pro, which extended the headroom a little bit. And they also switched from type 1 ferro tape to type 2 chrome tape. But still, it was cheap tape and they were still recording in high speed. So yeah, nothing gives you a better, when it comes to a physical recording format, nothing gives you a better sound quality than a recording that was done in real time. So now what about pre-recorded mini discs? Well, here we don't really have a problem when it comes to the way how they have been recording them, or we also don't have a problem when it comes to the actual physical format itself, even though there is a difference between recordable and pre-recorded mini discs. You see, recordable mini discs are magneto-optical discs, and pre-recorded MDs, they are, well, exactly the same as pre-recorded CDs, but this has no effect on the sound quality because, it's a digital format. But what does have an effect on the sound quality is the recording format. Minidisc is using a loosey compression format called A-track. And they did improve the quality of this recording format over time, but especially the early versions of this format had a really bad reputation. People said that it sounded thin or tinny or whatever, but it just didn't sound great in their opinion. So now that we know that, what does it mean when we compare pre-recorded mini discs and recordable mini discs? Well, if we want to have a fair comparison, we have to compare a home recorded mini disc that has been recorded with a recorder that was available at the time when the pre-recorded mini disc came out. Otherwise, it would be completely unfair. And if we compare that, and if you record with a recorder that was available by the time the pre-recorded mini disc came out, it's very likely that you are using the exact same 8-track version they also had been using in order to produce the pre-recorded mini disc version. And, in this case, I highly doubt that there would be an audible sound difference or an audible quality difference. I mean, where should it come from? I don't know if they are actually remaster the music for the minidisc version, or if they just use the same master they also use for the CD version. I don't know. But if you record a minidisc with the same 8-track version, like the pre-recorded minidisc version, I highly doubt that there is a quality difference. So the only time where a home recorded mini disc might sound better than a pre-recorded one is if you record with a newer recorder that is using a later and therefore more improved 8-track version. But, that wouldn't be a fair comparison. So now that we know that pre-recorded mini discs sound exactly the same as recordable mini discs if you record them with the same 8-track version, the question is, when did it start to sound good? I mean, mini discs have a lot of fans, and many people like mini discs because they sound great. So if the early 8-track versions sound terrible and later ones sound great, well, when did it start to sound great? Apparently that was when they invented 8-track version 3.5. And this was kind of like the holy grail back then. And I mean, 8-track 3.5 was also included in those expensive, high-quality Sony JA mini disc decks. So yeah, 8-track 3.5 seems to be the key. So 8-track 3.5 came out apparently, I think, in the year 1997, something like this. And now this is where it starts to get a little bit confusing and a little bit complicated. So let's take a look at this pre-recorded mini disc, for example. This is Leftism by Leftfield. It's a really great album and really great music, and I believe that many people would agree that it's the kind of music that you want to listen to at a somewhat decent quality. So nobody would purchase something like this on a pre-recorded cassette because it wouldn't sound that great. So this album came out in 1995. So that would be 2 years before 8-track 3.5. So what does it mean? Does it mean that this mini disc sounds terrible? Does it mean that you should avoid it? No, actually it doesn't. It sounds really, really great. But this might be due to the fact that even though the album came out in 1995, this minidisc version, however, came out in 1999. So that's 2 years after 8-track 3.5. So maybe that's the reason why this minidisc sounds great. So yeah, now I thought about something. I thought about, how about older mini discs? Do they really sound terrible? Yeah, so the only way to test whether or not old mini discs sounded really that terrible is by listening to an old mini disc. So I listened to this one. This is a compilation. It's some kind of a promo disc, and it came out in the year 1993. So that was the very early stages of mini disc. So if the rumor is true that old mini discs and old 8-track versions really sounded terrible, then this must sound terrible. But when I was listening to it, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It didn't sound bad at all. It sounded really good. And, by the time this came out, many people were still listening to crappy, cheap, and low quality pre-recorded cassettes. So this definitely sounds way better than any pre-recorded cassettes. So how could anybody think that this sounds terrible, but then pre-recorded cassettes are okay for some reason? Makes absolutely no sense. So I recorded a few snippets of these songs and uploaded another video on my other channel. It's called Another Vinyl Junkie. The link to this video is down in the description. I hope the video is still available by the time you are watching this, so you can listen and see for yourself if it really sounds terrible or not. In my opinion, it doesn't sound terrible. In my opinion, it sounded really good. So yes, I can't really compare the sound quality of the Minidisc version compared to the CD version because I don't really have a CD version of any of these songs, so I can't really compare the Minidisc and the CD version. But I could compare old Minidiscs with new Minidiscs. So I have this Minidisc that came out in the year 2000, and there is one song that is included on both of these Minidiscs. It is The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight by REM. So I recorded both of these versions and I compared them side by side, and yes, there is definitely an audible difference. The one on this Minidisc sounds a little bit warmer. It does sound a little bit warmer and it has a little bit less tremble. This one has more tremble and it sounds more clear, a little bit sharper. And maybe that's what people mean when they say it sounds tinny or thin or whatever. So yeah, which version do I prefer? Even though I like warmer sounds, I do have to say that I prefer this version because it sounds a little bit more open and a little bit sharper and more clear. This one, it sounds almost, well, a teeny tiny bit muffled, and it does sound a little bit more compressed. And I did notice that all my new Minidisc or pre-recorded Minidiscs, they sounded a little bit warmer compared to the older pre-recorded Minidiscs that I have. But yeah, it's not that the older pre-recorded Minidiscs sounded terrible. Yes, maybe there's one that doesn't really sound that great, but then again, it doesn't really say anything about the format itself. Sometimes they just didn't master the music correctly. So yeah, that being said, when people say that old Minidiscs sounded tinny and thin and just not that great, you also have to ask yourself the question, what have they been using in order to listen to those Minidiscs? Because when it comes to old Minidisc Walkmans, there is a huge difference in sound quality when we compare old Minidisc Walkmans with new Minidisc Walkmans. You see, let's take a look at those two recorders, for example. Old Minidisc Walkmans, they already had something that is called Mega Bass. But the new Minidisc Walkmans, they have a digital Mega Bass, and it sounds completely different. The digital Mega Bass sounded strong, but it is very nicely leveled. It doesn't overpower or overlap the rest of the music, and it sounds very punchy, so to say. The old Mega Bass is a lot richer. It sounds a lot warmer, almost too warm, even if you set it to normal. And yeah, maybe if you listen to old Minidiscs on an old Minidisc Walkman, it sounds extremely great. Even though the sound on this Minidisc might be tinny, the Mega Bass definitely changes that, and it gives the music a very warm and a very rich sound. So yeah, I don't know if old Minidiscs sound the best on old Minidisc devices, but I do have to say they definitely don't sound terrible. So that rumor or those bad reputations, it's not really true. They do sound good and definitely not terrible. I mean, people start listening to cassettes nowadays, so yeah, it definitely sounds better than pre-recorded cassettes. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Tell me in the comments what you think, if pre-recorded Minidiscs sounded terrible, if older Minidiscs sounded worse. Tell me in the comments. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next random video. Bye!